Preston, what's up, man? How are you? How's it going?
I'm well. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well. I heard that it's finally started to cool off a little in Austin over the last
Yeah,
over the last week.
yeah. That 2 or 3 month run of over 100-degree temperature, actually over 105, stopped. I think a couple
Wow,
days ago, and it rained for the first time yesterday. So big days.
that's insane. Wow. Yeah, we have some family. Some of my cousins live in Austin. They've been out here this week in Southern California, just beating the heat, and they said it's been brutal. So they're really excited to hear that those temps have dropped a little.
Oh, it's been
Yeah.
so nice. It's been brutal.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the prime time of the year, right? I mean, it's like really spring and fall for you guys. It's when the weather gets really good, right?
Yeah, we're basically you guys, but with a little bit more rain. So nice
Yeah.
and cool. Nobody shuts windows. It's nice to not have your AC running
Yeah.
30 hours a day.
For sure, for sure. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I'm really excited to get to chat with you today and get to talk a little bit about your background, some of the cool things you're doing at Awkward. But uh, as Preston, let's hear a little background on you and like what are you doing right now, and yeah,
I think a lot of people never really think that they're going to be in operations, and then you just kind of wind up in it. And so that was kind of my journey. Financial planner out of college. I went to oil and gas for a really long time. Um, I got lucky enough to trick someone into hiring me for a position I was way underqualified for, and so I got to run Asia Pacific out of Singapore for a division of the company. Um, and so I had 2 kids out there. It was really great. But really, what I learned out there is that I like autonomy. My boss sat in Dubai, and so I didn't have anyone, and I got to learn the hard way by getting things wrong. Um, and really, it was great. I come from that company was a $24 billion company when I was in Houston, and for me, it was a $14 million P&L with some satellite P&Ls that I managed, and I got to see an opportunity and pounce on it. I got to see problems and address them really quickly, as opposed to being in this big siloed organization where it was a pissing match every time you wanted to do something. And so I got used to that, and I really liked it. I learned a lot. I think I failed accounting twice in college, and then I'm managing a P&L, and I remembered all the lessons that I tried not to remember and pay attention to in class. And so now I was running a big P&L, a big cash flow for basically Asia Pacific, because everything was routed out of us from a currency perspective for USD. Um, and then, yeah, so we had 2 kids out there, and the thought of getting on another flight for 24 hours with a 3-year old and an 18-month old made me want to pull my toenails out.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
It's brutal. A metal tube with a thing that a tiny human that you can't really explain why their ears hurt or why they can't get up or why they're bored. It's awful. It's terrible.
And did you guys have kids out there, or did you have kids and then you took that gig in Asia?
No, both of them were born out there. In fact, when my wife came out to do the house finding trip with me, she came back home. We were there for 5, 6 days or something. I stayed. She came back home, called me like 12 hours after landing to tell me that she was pregnant. And
Oh wow.
so, and then she stayed in Houston for like 5 months, six
Yeah.
months, and then came back out to meet me very pregnant. And so, yeah, both of them were born out there.
That's awesome. I'm sure that's its own story and journey, just raising young kids abroad, right?
Yeah, it's a trip. We've got kind of a family that we built out there with other people that are doing the same thing.
So what happened next? You were doing that for a while, and then you ended up getting a new gig and moved back to the States.
Yeah, I kind of figured. So again, the whole not flying again with children. But also, I kind of figured that oil and gas was sunsetting. I was third generation oil and gas. I was born overseas. My grandfather died overseas in oil and gas, and my dad was still traveling around a ton. And so, found something. We basically set a list of cities that we wanted to move to. A solar gig came up in Austin, and it was sold to me as a startup that had been around for 14 years. And so I just pounced on it. It was a fantastic opportunity. Ran manufacturing and operations and supply chain for really out of the Philippines, Mexicali, and then distribution out of Southern California. Long story short, big company, big siloed company. It was I mean, for example, I think it was a 6 month argument for me to get something like $21 million of inventory that no one knew that we had liquidated, so we could just free up cash. I just thought that that was an easy layup, and I mean, it was such a fight just to do that. Um, So I got frustrated with that. I was again dealing. I had teams in the Philippines and teams in Mexico, and I was on like a 9 or 10 p.m. call and just frustrated, and found an opportunity for a really small massage tool startup. Small comparatively speaking, right? In D2C world, this is actually a pretty big startup, but got the opportunity to run global operations for them and never looked back. And so that was my first foray into D2C, CPG, ecom, true ecom. And that was really fun. That company organically grew. She was a master of social media in the prime of social media and Facebook ads. Um, got lucky enough to have her massage tool featured on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and it just blew up.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it went from no millions to like 75 million in a heartbeat.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was really fun. And it was all like a super small team. I think when I came in, I was the second non-family member hired. And so, I mean, it was a wonderful learning experience. Not knowing anything about marketing, not knowing anything about how you fill the funnel, um, but really knowing the fulfillment side of it, and even getting more refined on that in the manufacturing side of it. So it was a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, as it goes with founders and startups, got a little too big too fast, and so we decided to part ways. Found a snack company that I was just absolutely passionate about. It was really interesting because that was like there was a snack company that our primary customers were basically unicorns in the startup world, and so it's like Stripe, Jewel at the time, Uber, Lyft, everybody, and so we provided all their snacks and in their service of the machines. That was really fun. That was another one that just went. I think I was employee number 80, and within 6 or 10 months, I think there was like 600 of us,
Wow.
and we expanded. I think I launched like 2 or 3 new locations in that time, and then like everybody else, COVID. We had to pivot really quick. I think our revenue was down within 10 days of COVID by like 95%. And so, because of my D2C experience, we pushed the D2C model to get those snacks, basically the boxed snacks. Everyone did it at the same time. I can't say that we innovated it, but we started pushing those out immediately to the tune of thousands of orders a week, or sorry, a month. But it was just a trip. And so, but yeah, I went to a logistic, ran a 3PL for a while. That all that stuff got outsourced to this 3PL. That was an interesting thing. Started picking up a bunch of e-commerce companies because e-commerce blew up during COVID as well. Not so good for snacks in office, but excellent for D2C. And so we just went gangbusters. But I was traveling a ton. I was gone 2, 3 weeks a month, and the status was great, but just gone constantly with little kids. It was just too much.
Why were you traveling so much? Was it just sales opportunity, like being on the road selling, or what?
No, it was more so operational stuff. So I ran the supply chain. I ran onboarding new customers, and then getting new facilities up and running. So identifying these facilities, making sure they're right for the customers, and then launching the new facilities. Taking a lot of the folks that were in that logistics company were all former Amazonians or Starbucks people, and so we could turnkey a new facility in a new state in 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
Wow.
from nothing to functional facility. And so we did that, and then set up the distribution, made sure all the APIs were set up properly between our proprietary system and then typically their Shopify or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And then just started churning out orders. We launched a company very similar to Favor or Instacart or anything like that. It's called Reef, and so we helped them launch a bunch of different facilities. I think we had 12 or 10 or 12 or something like that. So it was last mile stuff. It was really interesting,
Yeah.
learning that side of the business. So
Wow. Very cool. And so you did that for a while, and then you ended up. Tell us, like, how did you end up at Awkward, and like, where where are you at with it now?
yeah, so same sort of thing as traveling a ton. Really frustrated. I really prioritize my family, and just being gone 50 to 75% of the month was too much. Found the listing, the job opening for the COO role for Awkward. Started digging into it. And I was hooked. I've joked several times I was either going to get this job or a restraining order. And so it really resonated with me. My wife is really open. She's way smarter than I am. And she wanted to be a sexual psychologist through school. And so she's always been really open about her body, our relationship, and how all that stuff works. Because I'm a Neanderthal and I just had no idea before I met her. And so the hero product from Awkward, lovingly called the Cum Sponge, just really resonated with me. Um, and so the job was posted by RBC. Started interviewing with them. They're the guys that started Big Ass Fans and sold it. And then finally met the founder. And anyone knows from talking to founders, like, you have brilliant people sometimes understand that it takes a good team to run a business and sometimes don't. She was one of the few that really understands how to build a company and where her strengths were and where her strengths are not, and then relying on the people to fill in the gaps, so to speak. So, I mean, that was it. I was done. Been here for a little over 2 years. We grew, in the time that I've been here, we've grown basically 8x. And so launched Amazon, launched retail. In January of this year, we basically had 0 retail doors. Now we have something like 2,700.
Wow.
Um, and so it's been growing, really, like everybody else, prioritizing profitability, trying not to do the raise game right now, where it's time to raise.
For sure. Or the just grow with zero contribution margin at the bottom line. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like I jokingly call it a Ponzi scheme. I don't like raising just to pay off debt,
Yeah.
or to raise for a runway. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't like diluting anybody for that. I'd rather just get what we can. If we have to raise again, maybe a decent Series A, just to get us sprint past everything else and not have to raise again. And that would really be for like product innovation, um, and then really anything about expanding the product catalog, and then obviously the campaigns around it.
Absolutely. That's cool. I'm curious, with all that retail you're in right now, are you in a few big box that are just well distributed? What's your one of your biggest retailers that someone could buy the product at right now?
CVS for sure is the biggest one. Spencer's, a lot of adult stores for obvious reasons. At CVS, we've got about 2,000 doors, spread all over.
I was just gonna say real fast, was it challenging to get into CVS being like a, let's call it more of a sexual wellness counterculture type of product?
So it's really interesting you bring that up. No, well, I mean, it was really time consuming. I think it was like an 18-month conversation. We started in .com, and we didn't want to go the pay to play route to get on shelves, and so we just started on .com.
On the shelves.
It was really easy to start the conversation for us because the buyer, who we love, came to us because of or I think it was organic TikTok that she found. Our social media game is really great. I mean, just because of the nature of the product, it really bodes well for people stopping while they're scrolling. And so at the time, I think we had, I don't know, maybe 30 million views on a few different videos, and I think just under 300,000 followers. And so she found something, she reached out to us, and she had just done that as I came aboard.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was great. It's tricky. CVS is really tricky because they really throttle the campaigns that you're allowed to do. Everything has to be approved through them. They don't want any, I guess, fluffing of the sales. And so really you're limited to what you can do with them. And it's not a bad thing per se, but it just constricts how you approach getting velocities out of
Oh,
it.
totally. We've had a couple of clients, specifically like one in the CBD space that we worked with, and it's the highs and the lows with big box like CVS and Rite Aid, just staying on the shelves, keeping it consistent. But at the end of the day, like I always say, when people are like, "How do I get into big box?" I'm like, "Well, you have a really good product, and the and the buyers contact you. That's really it."
We took that as almost like a campaign, or an approach. And so we're very strategic on who we want to go on the shelves with. And we're very strategic about the supply chain. We're very, very knowledgeable of the supply chain. We don't want to be negatively impacted and just kill our relationship immediately. And so if there's any retailers that we were thinking about, we would specifically target them on social media. And so we'd start to find the buyers, we'd at them. I mean, it was like just a full on,
Almost like
campaign.
an SDR approach for sales, right? It's
Yeah.
like identify them, build the profiles, and start Yeah, that's cool.
just to get on the radar, just kind of poke and prod and that whole touch type thing.
And I'm curious with all that, with all you're doing on that front, is would you say D2C is still primary focus? Is wholesale, or is it really they have their own initiatives and their own teams that are still growing? And
That, like I said, there's only four of us, so there's no specific team for a specific channel. So it's really, so we use the D2C thing to test our campaigns, how we're, so the educational component of it, do we resonate with people? Do people understand what our hero product and our subsequent products that we've launched since then are for, and what the value of them is? And because of the nature, you asked about the countercultural sexual wellness thing. It depends on how you look at it and who you're listening to. CVS, per se, like I said, our buyer is fantastic. She is fantastic. She's since been promoted, but the sexual wellness thing is really big for them. They sell, I've asked her one day, they sell millions upon millions of dollars of just sex toys, which surprised me from CVS. And so you have this on social media, you have this sexual revolution where people are really open and free. But what we're finding is it's not, that's the voice of a few, a very loud voice of a few, and not the majority. And so, from an educational perspective, again, I'm a guy and an idiot, but from an educational perspective, what we've seen is that, and we're founded by a female, so like I'm not the one that come up with the products. We just make sure they get out, and we do it as profitable as possible. Um, we find that there's a huge percentage of women that don't really understand their bodies, and so getting them to understand what our product is and isn't is tricky, and letting them know that we're not for everybody. It's fine if you don't use us. We don't care. We just want people to be happy and healthy. Um, but yeah, that educational component is really tricky. And so we use the D2C channels to test that so that we can, when we dial in our next target for a retail perspective, we know exactly how to market, what the box should say, as we're evolving. And so, I mean, and that's been a little over 2 years here, and that has been a constant test. Just constantly figuring out the creative, constantly figuring out the text, just
I
everything.
mean, that's really smart. I really haven't heard like many brands say that you're using D2C to essentially validate messaging, validate talking points. And so when it comes to, especially your product that needs that education, when it comes to the small space you have on a shelf, when it comes to your packaging, to know the words you're using and the images you're using, the colors you're using are all going to validate someone being able to understand what the product is and actually purchase it.
People talk about like the hook in creative, or just trying to get someone's attention on social media. Like, but you got to think about it. You've got however many social media platforms you can be hitting, how many times you can be touching them from different angles. You've got words, like literally verbal words that you can be using on a video, and to be changing things up, um, whether it be just text and imagery, or whether it be an actual video itself. On a store, you have, in our case, a 7 by 3 inch face of a box. That's how you're going to get that person's attention. And so nothing's moving. Maybe if you're lucky, you have an end cap. And so, like, it's just a completely different game. You have to have that piece dialed in, because you can't, no one's standing there going, hey, you should try our pea funnels if you're a festival goer, or you should try our drip stick if you don't like the next day drips, if you don't like time bombs. Like, there's no one there doing that, and the employees don't care.
Yeah, and it's a new, I mean, they probably, employees probably have no idea. I mean, they're probably like, unless they've been asked about it before, probably not, don't have proper education. And also, it's not like you guys are like a whale and selling a men's razor, men's like, clippers, where it's like, I need to go into CVS because I have a beard and I need to shave. It's not like that at all. Or a cell phone case, or, you know, shower gel. You guys are your own category.
And we've done weird things, like we pixelate. We have after sex cleanup on the box, and so we'll pixelate the word sex, just to try and grab somebody's attention. So it's like cops, but you can still sort of see, like if you're watching, someone, a criminal blurt out or something, but you can still sort of see what it
Yep, you
is.
can still see it a
And
little.
so we've toyed
Yeah.
with that quite a bit. Amazon Amazon's a really good one to test retail because like Amazon's so conservative. Our Amazon store launched it as a protective thing more than anything, and just a brand awareness. I mean, it's hard to ignore the largest marketplace on earth, and plus you have such a driven buyer there. They're going there to buy, not necessarily shop. And so, same thing. Amazon's so restrictive. Like even the word sex in an image on a box will get us pulled down. And so, like same thing. We have to mess with that to see how to make it attention grabbing that we are blurring out or sort of painting through the word sex, but also comply with Amazon.
Very interesting. I'm curious too on when it comes to like the education and like ongoing like retention and relationship management you have with existing D2C customers. Do you guys find that the sex content is highly consumed? The reason I bring this up is we worked with Woo More Play, and this was early on
Yeah, we
when
love them.
When Woo More Play just had their wipes, and we helped them launch a couple of their products out of that. But it was the wild how much the email and the SMS list consumed like sex content. Like when we talk about like articles, like it's we essentially took the because they had this evergreen product, and we were like, well, we can't just product all the time. But we took the idea of like all of the women's magazines that you see on end caps at grocery stores, and it's like top 5 things about this sex or this sex and this sex. We took those concepts, and it was the most heavily consumed, highest open rate, highest CTRs we've seen across any client we've ever worked with. Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. So we have a fairly large email list for our general size, and I have people both in my network, my professional network and my personal network, that subscribe to our emails and use them. So like my functional medicine doctor uses them to help educate his patients, but also uses them for his own emailing. Our open rate, like on a bad day, is 40%. Um, and typically we're north of 50%. And it's typically the more salacious stuff that gets the open rate just through the roof. What's really interesting though is the number of people that are actually customers on there that have bought from us before. And so, for example, we had our founder did a request to help. Like there's a particular doctor that doesn't really like us that much for whatever reason. And so we reached out to our customer base, like, "Hey, we're seeing this. Is there anything you guys know? Can you help?" And I think she got 100 responses back, and out of those 100 people, individual people, just in the first like few hours, out of those people, I think one of them had bought from us before. Learning that, like, where our list is really high and our engagement is really high, open click CTRs are really really high comparatively speaking, and we do generate revenue. It's not what you would think it would be. And so a lot of people are subscribing and staying subscribed for the entertainment factor. And so it's trying to figure out like are we not providing a product that they need? Are we not providing enough education around the product? Or I mean, it's just trying to dial that in as well. But every time we release an email, we get pretty decent bump in sales.
Yeah, I mean it's one thing to consider too, like what you guys could actually do to potentially like it's a whole different business model, but essentially monetize that list by working with other brands as well on affiliate or CPA basis, or just full over sponsorship. Yeah.
We've done that in the past. We did it to where we had our obviously like we know Woo. We're working with
Yeah.
something with them right now, and we've got some other partners. Just our founder's friend, Francis's friends, just in the same space. We partnered up with them to like cross promotional stuff. And that does well. It it's just tricky. Sometimes they're not the same people, the same audience. It's really interesting. We did something with Hey Favor. They used to be the Pill Club, and they were basically D2C birth control, and not necessarily the same thing, but sort of the same vein. We put samples in all their boxes, and it was like I think it was 160,000 samples went out to customers, like 160,000 customers. I think we saw, I mean, almost nothing in sales from it, And just because it didn't resonate and it didn't, like, there was not enough education around it, and it surprised people. From our customer service side, which I run as well, we were in there and you would see the tickets like, what is this? How do I use it? It's reusable. And it's just like, and you realize like, okay, that didn't work. So we need this. You talk about branding and packaging. So it's the same thing, like maybe not the right audience, maybe we didn't educate enough, maybe it didn't have the right materials with it. And so it's the same thing when we're cross pollinating with our friends, like making sure that they understand what these other products are, and then their list, as we're going into their list, making sure they understand what our products are and whether they play nicely together or they help different products or problems. So it's a constant evolution. People talk about how, we have too much competition. It's the market saturated. Like, I don't know, from the outside looking in, I look at stuff like that, knowing what we know now. I'm like, that is such an easier game. There's so many things that you can learn from, if it's two other people out there, what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right, and take advantage of that. Whereas we're completely paving it. Yeah.
Absolutely. First, if it's just you, and you've got to, if you want to test something, you have to spend the money to test it and see if it works.
Yeah. And we spent a lot of money, and not necessarily, well. I mean, it's just, I mean, not to say well, but we've spent things and just tested things. It just didn't work. I mean, period.
80% of, I have a mentor that always says this to me, is like 80% of the ads you launch will fail. Only 20%,
Yeah.
at least 20% will work. Yeah.
I think that we're probably like 90%, 95%.
90%. Yeah.
There's restrictions. There's sometimes people call us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Compliance, especially with on the paid front. I'm sure it's like, you guys got to be crafty with every word, every creative that comes through in the, like I call it, the sexual wellness counterculture space. It's not as straightforward as just saying what it is.
Yeah. And as people are, again, back to what I was saying about, the big voice about sexual liberties and freedoms, it seems from our perspective is that it's just a few people making a lot of noise, whereas even the social media platforms or even just any sort of channels are saying, like, it seems that they're getting more and more open and liberal with the terms you can use. But then, like Amazon, for example, we used to say after sex cleanup on our listing, on our title. Well, that got blocked. And so we changed it to post coitus, which is like the dumbest. I mean, it's not super fun. It's not in our brand, but if you look up the other things to say through a thesaurus, there's not many words. And I was in there last week, and coitus is getting hit now. And it's just like, how you're literally constricting the things that I can do, as you're saying that you're more and more open.
Yeah. And then it comes to, well, for sure. Then it maybe is like, well, maybe does post sexy time work? They don't know. you know, it's like, how do you play around with certain words? And it's an algorithm that's going to tell you yes or no. It's not straightforward. Like you get a Bible and a book to follow compliance regulations with Amazon when you're working with them. It's like whatever they want, it is or it isn't. Same with Facebook.
Yeah, they could just have a beginner bonnet.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the game plan for the future with you guys? Is it more of like a product roadmap release? Like where do you guys seeing kind of go from where you're at right now? What would you guys like to see Awkward look like in another like 2 years?
So we just finally hired a head of marketing that's talented, smart, and just really good at what she does after failing a few times. And so we're finding what we have right now is the short term. Product catalog and innovation are probably the longer term. And then with her in place and the team around her, setting up the campaigns to have those products go out, and be successful in their launches. And so for sure, definitely some innovation around the current dripstick that we have and maybe mainstream, and then complementary products that are in the same space physically, um, that our customers are asking for. And so really dialing in our customer a little bit more, dialing in the market a little bit more, again, the creative, and then expanding the product catalog is sort of the next 3 to 18 months. 18 months is like a guess, right? Like you have these best laid plans and then something happens and it's a little bit different. But
Consumer confidence shifts, something happens in the market. Yeah.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the great example. Hopefully, we don't see anything like
Yeah.
that again ever. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great example. Like, you just never know what's going to happen. Like, nobody saw in February of 20 that in March everything was going to go to shit.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, we, just on on the agency side in our business, like we opened an office in Europe 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before COVID started, and like opened an office and hired a whole team, had not even been out there yet. Just being like, all right, we've been doing this remotely, we're going to work on it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, did we just make a huge mistake? Like, we just expanded our team. I haven't even met them yet. And I can't even go over there now. I was
Yeah.
like planning to go out there. Like, this was in late February, beginning of March. I was planning to go out there, like, oh, I'll be out there in like 60 days. And then I couldn't travel. It was like, did we make a, and then coincidentally, our market had the, we were grateful to be in a situation where, obviously we grew significantly because everyone went online. But
Yeah.
it's crazy how the world and the universe throws you darts.
Yeah. Just as you start to get comfortable, something happens. And I don't necessarily like resting in my laurels, but there's that weirdness in there that I'm a big planner and a forecaster, but I'm also realistic where the next 3 months I want to have dialed in, 6 months I want to be sort of close, 12, 18 months, let's have some sort of outline, and then refine it as we get closer.
Yeah, totally. And especially when you're a small team, like those 90-day sprints quarter to quarter are actually more important than like where are you going to be in 2 to 3 years, because it's the work and the milestones that you hit earlier on that are going to have the bigger impact overall. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool, man. Well, hey, besides work and all, like what do you like to do for fun? What are you doing on the weekends? You said you're a family man, but what else are you into?
So we have a 10 and 8 year old, and so we're busy with them a lot in sports. And I was just talking to my wife. I think it's 5 or 6 days a week we're in sports. Daughters in softball, sons in baseball, and then
Yeah.
the school around all that. So that dominates a lot of our lives. But my wife and I love to travel. We love to eat, and she likes that I cook. So planning some trips coming up is going to be really nice. As we all know, the startup world is stressful, so you have to figure out some sort of therapeutic thing. So I've been in jujitsu for the better part of 9 years, and so I beat the crap out of myself a couple times a week, and I just feel better about
That's
life.
awesome.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, I mean that's it. Like running a startup and then having a family. There's not much time for anything else. I've got a few hobbies that I'll slip in some
Oh,
time here and
totally.
there, and that's about it.
That's awesome, Preston. I love it, dude.
What about you?
Me, I love to do like everything on the water. So a lot of like really niche, like I'm a big spear fisherman. I love to spearfish.
Oh wow.
So I race sailboats too. So I've been boating. I bought my first boat when I was 14 years old. And after college, like it really got out of hand. And just like my best friend and I bought like our first like big sailboat for like 3 grand, fixed it up, flipped that, ended up selling that for like 5 times more than we bought it for. Then we like traded some cash, financed part of it ourselves, got a motorcycle type of deal, then bought a bigger boat, then a bigger boat. And now we have a 52-foot Jeannot Sunfast, like a ocean cruiser racer. And then we just dialed that in, repowered it. And honestly, I'm so busy now that we're actually getting ready to sell it because I just don't have as much time as I used to. And I used to, live 5 minutes from the marina and be able to go down there on the weekend, work on it, wrench on it. And now it's like I've got, friends that have boats too. And honestly, I want to double down, make a lot more money, and buy a real big boat one day. So I'm out on the water all the time, surfing in the winter, sailing a lot year round, surfing and skiing. So those are my sports. Yeah.
Not far off of you. Grew up
Yeah.
on the coast, and so boating a lot. I think I was the designated captain at the age of 9, for us on the coast, and then there's a big lake right here. I'm sure your family and friends talk about it, but it's so dry now that it's really hard to really
Lake
navigate. Most of the
Travis.
ramps are closed. Yeah, like Travis.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard you guys have been in a drought. One of my best friends, He lives on Lake Travis, like has a beautiful house, and luckily
He's
he's
probably not far from me. We're pretty
oh cool,
close.
yeah, he's on the north side of the lake, a little town. I can't
Oh,
remember the name of it.
Larga Vista or something.
I forgot the exact name of it, but anyways, like he's on a deep he's like on a cliffside, so he's got it's pretty deep, so his dock isn't really affected from what other people are in the area. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. We sold our boat just in the nick of time. We sold it, I think, a month or 2 months ago, and it was just like one of those. We got really lucky and sold it when we did. And it's the same thing. Like want a bigger boat. I immediately
Yep.
make some capital because like I grew up on a boat. I grew up doing that stuff. I want my kids to learn how to surf because like I grew up on the coast. I learned how to actual surf.
Where did you grow up?
Galveston. So I'm from Houston, but we spent a lot of time in Galveston.
Yeah, Galveston's great. Yeah.
Yeah, terrible surf comparatively speaking, but it was enough to push us around and let us call ourselves surfers.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it's and you guys are still not far. Was it like 2.5 hours, 3 hours from Austin?
From Houston, it was 2.5 hours. For us in Austin, the closest beach is about 4.5, 5 hours
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because we're pretty inland.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree. It's like I'm at that point in my life where I can sacrifice a little bit more. I'm time poor right now, and I want to make sure that I can have some fun toys again in the future.
Yeah, you can't just work the whole time. You got to have fun too, and create those
Absolutely.
memories for everyone
Absolutely.
around you.
Totally. I think, when you like I can't wait to have kids one day and just know what it's going to be like to let them spear their first fish, or take them on these like insane trips that my buddies and I go on to the Bahamas or to the local islands off of Southern California. So it'd be fun.
How long can you hold your breath for?
So I can do a static breath hold in pool for over 4 minutes.
Oh,
And
that's
when
great.
I
That
I
is
say that, anyone, like, if you trained for it, like if you went through a PFI level 1 free diving course, you could do it too. I'm actually gonna I'm planning to take the level 2 course. I haven't taken it yet. I took the level 1 like 7, 8 years ago, but the level 2, like they'll get you up to like 5.5 minute static breath hold. Yeah, and it's one of
I'm
those it's
fascinated with that
yeah
stuff
it's
on
it's
YouTube.
one of those things where us as human beings, like, you don't realize that we can hold our breath for 4 minutes. It's just all in your head. We don't need, like, any human being can hold their breath for 4 minutes. It's just that, but it comes different when you're diving and you're going deep, and depends on how deep you're going, how much weight you have on your wetsuit, the ocean temp, and also you're hunting. When you're spearfishing, you're hunting. So it's like there's a level of excitement that you have to really calm yourself down. So usually my dives are like anywhere from 30 seconds to like the 45, 50 seconds. So I can go deeper if uh if I'm trying to, or if it's the right conditions, but that's about it.
How deep are you typically going?
I when in California, I'm usually going anywhere from like 30 to like 60 feet. Like, I'm not really diving deeper than 60 feet in California because it's cold. But if you go to Florida and you're like, or Hawaii, the water's warmer, so you can dive deeper. You don't have as much weight on you, and you don't have a 5, 7 mil, 8 mil wetsuit on, so you can dive deeper. And then it's all dependent on really those conditions. Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. If you haven't done it before, it's like one of those sports that's just, it's addicting, and it's so much fun. Yeah.
That's one that I keep at arm's reach because I know myself and a bit of addicted personality. I'll just be headlong into it and holding my breath at random times, passing out during meetings or
Yeah.
something. I have to keep stuff like that at arm's reach.
For sure, for sure.
But yeah, I'm fascinated with it. I spend a lot of time watching the free divers just to like pass time, and then the thought of being able to spearfish to me is really cool because I grew up fishing. I love fishing,
Yeah.
and I love to be able to like be able to feed yourself and your family by whatever you bring in.
Yeah, man, there's nothing better than being able to go out, and whether it's rod and reel or spearfish, and bring home like fresh fish that you enjoy, and give as gifts to your family, and friends. Like, I love it. And I've been going. going to all these, islands off of Southern California my whole life, like growing up going to Catalina since I was like in diapers. And then over the last like 5, 6 years, been going to the Bahamas. And one of my best friends lives in Jacksonville. We tow his boat down to like Southern Florida, and we go over to Grand Cay and like the Northern Abacos, go out there for like 5 to 7 days at a time and just fish every day. Just like go rod and reel for tuna in the morning and in Wahoo, and then in the afternoon go for lobster and hogfish, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's not a bad
Yeah,
gig, man. You just
yeah,
come back fat and happy and tan.
absolutely. Yep, yep. A little bit of sun poisoning every
Yeah.
once in a while, but always good stories. Yeah, yeah. Well, Preston, man, it was great having you on today. And the way I like to wrap these things up is there any place that anyone can get in touch with you? Are you on any social media or any links that we can post in the description?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best way. Although we're a startup and we have a lot of organic content out there, I really try hard not to be on socials. Again, distracting. I'm trying to make sure ours are running as opposed to scrolling through something for endless minutes. LinkedIn's definitely the
Absolutely.
best.
It's funny you say that. I actually have two phones. One that my old phone, I keep all my social on just so it's out in the way and it's not distracting me
Yeah,
in the regular world.
it's too much. There's
Yeah.
too much great content out there, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd rather be a producer than a consumer. Cool. Well, I'll put your LinkedIn in there, and it was great having you on, and I'm stoked we got to connect.
Yeah, Mark, this is great, man. I'll hit you up if I'm in Southern California, and maybe I can not die holding my breath.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're ever out here and we could take you out, that would be great.
That'd be awesome.
Cool. All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, but thanks for having me on. Appreciate you.